I lost everything when my husband betrayed and erased me, but my father's hidden legacy gave me a second chance. By uncovering corruption and risking my life, I exposed a powerful criminal empire. I didn't rise for revenge, I rose to reclaim truth, justice, and my own identity. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe. Get ready for real emotional and thrilling stories from Black adults that will keep you hooked till the end. My name is Zara Williams. Just a few hours ago, I stood barefoot on a marble floor that reflected the Atlanta skyline like a crown of glass. Now, I was sitting on the edge of a cracked sidewalk, my suitcase beside me, rain soaking through my coat. Trying to understand how a life could collapse so completely and so quietly, I didn't lose everything in one day. But it all ended in one moment. The penthouse had always smelled like money-polished wood, imported candles, silence that only wealth can afford. That morning, the silence felt different. Heavy, watching me. Kevin Williams stood near the window. His back to me, phone pressed to his ear. He didn't turn around when I walked in. "Kevin?" I said. He ended the call and finally faced me. His eyes, once warm, once mine, were flat, calculating, like I was a line item he'd already written off. "This place," he said calmly, "is no longer yours." I blinked. "What are you talking about?" He gestured toward the door. 2. Security guards stepped inside. Big men, black suits. No emotion. "You need to leave today," he continued. "I've already taken care of the paperwork." I laughed. I actually laughed. It sounded strange, even to my own ears. "Okay," I said. "What kind of business joke is this?" Kevin didn't smile. One of the guards cleared his throat. "Ma'am, we'll give you 30 minutes. That's when the truth crashed into me. I reached for my phone. No signal. I opened my banking app, error message. Credit cards declined. Every account I'd ever touched was frozen, erased, reassigned. My name, my identity had been surgically removed from my own life. "Kevin," I whispered, "what did you do?" He looked away just for a second. Then he straightened his shoulders like a man stepping into a boardroom. "It's business." "Zara," he said, "there's no room for emotion." I stared at him. This man, my husband. The man I'd supported when his first construction deal failed. The man whose ties I'd ironed before investor meetings. The man who used to call me his foundation. Why? I asked, my voice cracked despite my effort to stay calm. "Why are you doing this to me?" He didn't answer. He didn't have. 2. I packed what I could in silence. Clothes, a photo frame I slipped into my bag when no one was looking. My hand shook the entire time. Not from fear, from disbelief. When the elevator doors closed behind me, I felt something snap inside my chest. Not my heart. My trust. By nightfall, the rain started falling. Atlanta looked different from the ground, cold, endless, and different. I checked into the cheapest motel I could find using the last bit of cash in my wallet. The room smelled like bleach and loneliness. I sat on the bed and stared at the wall. No money. No home, no family to call. My mother had died years ago, taking her warmth with her. And my father, Daniel Brooks, had been a ghost long before that. We hadn't spoken in years. Whatever bond we once had faded with time, distance, and silence. I wrapped my arms around myself as thunder rolled outside. I kept replaying Kevin's words. It's business. That night, I realized something terrifying. The man I married had never loved me. He had used me, studied me, waited. And now he had erased me. Tears came quietly. Not dramatic. Just steady, exhausted. I didn't know how long I sat there, listening to the rain hit the window, wondering how I would survive the next day, let alone the rest of my life. But beneath the shock, beneath the grief, something else stirred. A question. Why? Was Kevin so confident I'd disappear? Men like him didn't destroy people unless there was something to hide. Something to protect. I didn't know it yet. But buried beneath my ruin was a secret, one left behind by a man I thought had abandoned me. A secret that would turn my fall into a reckoning. That night, on a broken bed in a forgotten motel, Zara Williams lost everything, and unknowingly began her rise. 3 days after I lost my home, a letter arrived with my name typed neatly on the front. Zara Williams. I almost didn't open it. At that point, envelopes only carried bad news, overdue notices, legal threats, reminders of everything I no longer had. But this one felt different, heavy, official. The return address belonged to a law firm in downtown Atlanta. My hands trembled as I unfolded the letter. We regret to inform you of the passing of Mr. Daniel Brooks. My father. The words blurred for a moment. Daniel Brooks, the man who taught me how to balance numbers before I learned how to braid my hair, the man who used to sit me on his lap and whisper, "Never depend on anyone to build your future." And then one day he vanished from my life. No explanations, no goodbye. I hadn't spoken to him in years. The letter requested my immediate presence at the firm. I stared at the motel ceiling that night, memories drifting in and out like ghosts. I didn't know whether to feel grief, anger, or nothing at all. By morning, curiosity won. I borrowed a coat from the motel manager and took the bus downtown. The law office was quiet, lined with dark wood and old diplomas. A receptionist led me into a private room where an elderly attorney waited, his glasses balanced on the tip of his nose. "You're Zara Brooks," he said. "Williams," I corrected automatically. Then hesitated. "I think." He gave a small, knowing smile. "Your father anticipated that confusion." My chest tightened. "Your father left something for you," the lawyer continued, sliding a thick folder across the table. "He instructed us to release it only under certain conditions. One of them was that you come alone." I swallowed. "What did he leave?" I expected old documents. "Maybe a small savings account, something symbolic." The lawyer opened the file. "Brooks Legacy Holdings, LLC. The name hit me like a sudden gust of wind. "It's a dormant company," he explained. "Legally active, but inactive for years. The company holds land across 3 states, several abandoned warehouses, and long-term investments that were intentionally left untouched." My breath caught. This wasn't just money. This was a structure, infrastructure, power. "You're the sole heir," he said simply. The room felt too small, too quiet. I gripped the edge of the table, my heart racing. "My father, he left all this?" I asked. "Yes, and he protected it." He explained that my father had stepped away from public business years ago, placing assets under shell protections, refusing partnerships, and refusing visibility. He'd chosen silence over exposure. "Why didn't he tell me?" I whispered. The lawyer hesitated. "He believed danger followed success. He wanted you safe until you were strong enough." For the first time in years, I felt something unfamiliar rise in my chest, understanding. My father hadn't abandoned me. He had been watching from a distance. But the truth came with a warning. The company carried old debts, complicated contracts, and worse, attention. Powerful interests had circled those assets for years, waiting for someone careless enough to wake them. "Reviving this company won't be easy," the lawyer said. "And it won't be safe." I nodded slowly. "Nothing about my life is safe anymore." That's when he mentioned a name, Samuel Carter. "He's a financial consultant." The lawyer said, "Brilliant, discreet. Your father trusted him." I met Samuel 2 days later in a quiet coffee shop. He studied me the way a chess player studies a board, not with judgment, but calculation. "You don't look like someone who knows what she owns," he said. "I don't," I admitted. He leaned forward. "Then listen carefully. This company isn't just money, Zara, it's leverage. It's truth buried under contracts and land deeds. And someone, possibly more than one person, benefited from it staying silent." My thoughts flashed to Kevin. Samuel met my eyes. "Once you wake this beast, there's no turning back." I exhaled slowly. "I've already lost everything," I said. "What's left to fear?" He smiled, not kindly, but respectfully. "Then let's begin." As I left the cafe, the city felt different, louder, sharper, like it knew something I didn't. For the first time since the penthouse, I wasn't just surviving. I was standing in my father's shadow, and I was ready to step into it. I made a decision that night, one that split my life in two. Either I would stay broken forever, or I would stand up and become someone no one could erase again. There was no middle ground. Samuel and I began working out of borrowed spaces, small offices, quiet corners of libraries, anywhere we could spread documents without attracting attention. Day blurred into night. Coffee replaced sleep. Fear turned into focus. We started with the oldest records of Brooks Legacy Holdings. That's when the rot revealed itself. Fake deeds, altered ownership trails, Shell partnerships that led nowhere or worse circled back to familiar names. The deeper we dug, the clearer it became that my father hadn't just gone silent. He had been hiding something. One afternoon, Samuel froze. Mid-scroll, his jaw tightening. "Zara," he said slowly, turning his laptop toward me. "Look at this." The land parcel on the screen made my stomach drop. I knew that address. Everyone in Atlanta did. It was the site of a luxury residential project, glass towers, rooftop pools, glowing billboards. Built and marketed by Kevin Williams Construction Group, except the land didn't belong to Kevin. It belonged to my father's company. I felt cold spread through my chest. "That's not possible," I whispered. Samuel pulled another file. Then another, 3 properties. Then 5, then 11. All tied to Kevin's most profitable developments. Our originally owned by Brooks Legacy Holdings. "This isn't a coincidence," Samuel said. "Your ex-husband didn't just build his empire, he took it." The room spun. Memories crashed into place. The rushed contracts Kevin had asked me to sign without reading. The nights he came home late, tense, short-tempered. The sudden success that followed. Years of struggle. My destruction hadn't been collateral damage. It had been a strategy. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to breathe. "My father knew," I said. "It wasn't a question." "Yes," Samuel replied. "And he protected the assets the only way he could, by stepping away and locking them down." For the first time, anger replaced grief. We restructured the company quietly. No press, no announcements. Just paperwork and precision. We gave it a new name, Phoenix Crown Holdings, a symbol of rebirth, of power rising from ashes. But the moment the paperwork was filed, the shadows moved. The first threat came as a phone call. No voice, just breathing. The second came as an envelope slid under my motel room door, empty except for a single word written in black ink. "Stop. DIDN, single quotes T. Then came the night that confirmed everything. I was driving back from a meeting with chums when the brakes failed. 1 second, the road stretched calmly ahead of me. Next, the pedal went soft under my foot. My heart slammed against my ribs as the car picked up speed. I swerved. Horns screamed. Tires burned. I barely managed to crash into a roadside barrier, metal shrieking as the car stopped inches from a drop. I sat there shaking, the rain pouring down the windshield, my hands locked around the steering wheel. This was no accident. Samuel arrived minutes later, his face pale. "They're escalating," he said quietly. "You're not just reopening a company anymore." "What am I doing?" I asked, my voice barely steady. He met my eyes. "You're poking a criminal network that hides behind suits and city permits." Fear wrapped around my spine, but beneath it, something stronger grew, resolve. "They think I'll back down," I said. "That I'll disappear again." Samuel nodded. "Most people would." "I'm not most people," I replied, because this wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about truth, about stolen foundations, buried crimes, and a man who thought stripping me of everything would keep his secrets safe. As I walked away from the wrecked car, rain soaking my clothes, I felt the full weight of what I was awakening. Not just a company, a reckoning, and once unleashed, it wouldn't be controlled. It would burn through lies, power, and silence. The beast was awake. And it was hungry. Asterisk concrete looks solid from the outside. That's the lie cities are built on. Samuel and I stopped pretending we were just fixing a company. What we were really doing was excavating a graveyard of paperwork, layer after layer of falsified reports, manipulated inspections, and bribes disguised as consulting fees. Every document told the same story: speed over safety, profit over people. Kevin's empire wasn't built on innovation. It was built on shortcuts. We worked in silence, often late into the night. The room smelled of old paper and cold coffee. I learned to read construction reports the way doctors read scans, looking not for what was written in, but for what was missing. Structural load margin serial turned by decimals. Safety inspections were stignil on days when inspectors were proven to be out of state. Concrete strength certification therapy and reused across unrelated sites. "These buildings are ticking clocks," Samuel said one night, rubbing his temples. "They're not designed to last." The words settled heavily in my chest. Then came the file that changed everything. A restricted report, internal, marked "Do not circulate." I read it twice before my hands started shaking. One of Kevin's newest residential towers, still occupied, had a compromised foundation. The soil beneath it was unstable and properly treated and already shifting. Engineers had flagged the risk months ago. Collapse wasn't a possibility, it was a timeline. He knows, I said, my voice barely audible. Samuel didn't argue. He didn't need to. Kevin Williams knew the building could fall and he chose silence. People were living there, families, children, elderly tenants who trusted the steel and glass around them. I couldn't breathe. I contacted city authorities first, planning department, safety bureau, internal compliance offices, nothing, voicemails, unanswered, meetings postponed, emails returned with polite, empty language. We'll look into it. Thank you for your concern. Please submit through proper channels. The channels were sealed from the inside. They're protecting him, I said. Samuel nodded, or protecting themselves. That night I sat alone, staring at the skyline. Each glowing window now looked like a question. How many lives were stacked on Kevin's balance sheets? If the law were asleep, then I would wake. We compiled everything: documents, timelines, property trails, and financial records linking bribes to approvals. Samuel anonymized the data, strict identifiers, and layered protections. We worked like surgeons. Then I reached out to investigative journalists I trusted. Quietly, carefully. I didn't give opinions. I gave facts. I didn't tell them what to think. I showed them what Kevin had done. I sent the files just before dawn. The next morning, Atlanta woke up to chaos. Headlines screamed across screens. Exclusive. Major construction firm accused of endangering lives. Whistleblower files reveal widespread safety fraud. Is Atlanta built on a lie? By noon, helicopters circled downtown. Protesters gathered outside city offices. Tenants were evacuated from the compromised tower. Kevin's face appeared on every news channel. Tight smile, rehearsed denials. This is misinformation, he said. A coordinated attack. But facts don't care about tone. The city trembled not from an earthquake, but from exposure. My phone rang nonstop. Unknown numbers. Blocked calls. Threats disguised as warnings. Samuel looked at me gravely. You just made this public. There's no going back. I felt fear, yes, but also relief. People were safe. That mattered more than my fear. That night, I stood outside the evacuated building. Red lights flashed, sirens hummed. Families clutched blankets, confused but alive. Kevin had gambled with their lives. And lost. As I watched the structure loom above us, cracked, unstable, dangerous, I understood something clearly for the first time. The greatest crimes aren't committed in alleys. They're buried beneath concrete, signed with ink, and approved by smiling men in suits. And now the ground beneath Kevin's empire was shifting, not collapsing yet, but close enough to feel very close. Kevin's face was everywhere, on televisions and shop windows, on phones held by strangers, on massive screens behind news anchors who no longer smiled when they said his name. He looked smaller than I remembered. The confident posture was gone, replaced by stiff shoulders and a jaw clenched too tightly. Sweat darkened the collar of his expensive suit as reporters shouted questions he could no longer control. Mr. Williams, did you knowingly approve unsafe construction? Were city officials bribed? How many lives were put at risk? He raised his hands, forcing a practiced smile. This company has always followed the law. The screen cut to footage of evacuated families and cracked concrete. Why didn't survive the edit? I was sitting in a quiet apartment Samuel had arranged for me, temporary, secure, untraceable, when my phone rang. The number was blocked. I knew before answering. Zara, Kevin said. His voice sounded thinner. Strained. This was you, wasn't it? For a moment I said nothing. I let him sit in the silence he had once forced on me. Yes, I replied calmly. And this is only the beginning. The line went quiet. Then his tone shifted. You have no idea what you're doing? He hissed. You're ruining lives. I almost laughed. You ruin lives, I said. I just turned on the lights. He hung up. Within days, his empire began to shake. Banks froze accounts pending investigation. Investors demanded explanations. Partners quietly withdrew, deleting years of loyalty in a single email. The man who once couldn't fail was suddenly radioactive. I watched it happen with a strange sense of distance, not joy, not revenge, clarity. Samuel tracked the fallout with precision. They're abandoning him faster than expected, he said. No one wants to be the last one standing next to a sinking ship. Kevin tried to regain control. Press conferences, legal threats, carefully worded statements denying everything. But truth doesn't need defending. It just needs time. Then the threats escalated. My apartment door was scratched one morning, deep, deliberate marks. My email is filled with anonymous messages warning me to stop. One night, I noticed a black SUV idling across the street for hours. Samuel didn't sugarcoat it. He's desperate now. What does that mean? I asked. It means he's no longer protecting his image, Samuel said. He's protecting himself. Fear crept in quietly, like a shadow stretching. Across the floor, I changed routines, avoided patterns, trusted no one outside a tight circle. But Kevin wasn't hiding his collapse anymore. He wasn't reveling. Leaked recordings surfaced, his voice pressuring inspectors, threatening silence, offering incentives wrapped in polite language. Former employees came forward one by one, carrying stories they buried out of fear. Each confession peeled away another layer of the man I once loved. I remembered our wedding day. The vows, the promises. I wondered how long he'd been wearing the mask. One evening, Samuel placed a file in front of me. Kevin's making moves, he said. He's trying to shift blame, quietly, and... He paused. You're part of the plan. My stomach tightened. How? He's telling people you're unstable, but this is personal. He wants to discredit you before the investigations. Deepen, I exhaled slowly. So now I'm the villain. Samuel nodded. Classic defense. That night, Kevin called again. You think you've won, he said, his voice low. But you're standing in dangerous territory, Zara. I didn't respond. You were nothing without me, he continued. You still are. I closed my eyes. Then I said, you're afraid. Silence. For the first time in your life, I added. You're afraid and it shows. He slammed the phone down. I knew then that this had crossed a point of no return. Kevin wasn't just fighting for his company anymore. He was fighting to survive, and men like him don't fall quietly. As night settled over the city, I stood by the window, watching the lights flicker below. Somewhere out there, Kevin was planning his next move. So was I, because when masks fall, the truth doesn't just expose the face underneath. It reveals how far someone is willing to go to keep breathing. And Kevin Williams was running out of air. Asterisk by the time Samuel said the words final move. I knew exactly what that meant. There would be no second chances after this. Kevin was cornered. But wounded animals don't surrender, they lash out. His legal team had slowed the investigations just enough to buy him time. Time to destroy evidence. Time to redirect blame. Time to disappear if he had to. We couldn't let that happen. If we wait, Samuel said, spreading documents across the table, he'll survive this. Not clean but free. I stared at Kevin's financial web projected. On the wall. Offshore accounts. Shell companies. Emergency exits. So we don't wait, I said. We make him talk. Samuel nodded. We give him something he can't resist. The trap was simple in design and dangerous in execution. A deal, not real but believable. Through intermediaries, we let it leak that Phoenix Crown Holdings was willing to settle quietly. No media, no courts. Just a private agreement that would shift disputed properties back under neutral control. And, more importantly, erase criminal exposure. Kevin took the bait faster than I expected. Desperation sharpens greed. He requested a private meeting off the record. No lawyers. A neutral location. One chance to make things disappear. The FBI was already involved by then. They had followed the paper trail Samuel and I exposed. And they understood something crucial. Kevin trusted deals more than defenses. They wired the room. They wired him the night of the meeting. My hands were steady, but my heart wasn't. I sat across from Kevin. For the first time since the penthouse, he looked older. Thinner. The confidence was cracked, but not gone. Zara, he said carefully, as if testing the name. You look different. So do you? I replied. He smirked. I hear you've been busy. Truth has a way of demanding attention, I said. He leaned back, crossing his arms. Let's stop pretending this is about justice. You want compensation, control, closure. I met his gaze. I want accountability. He laughed softly. You won't get that. Then he started talking about costs, about cutting corners, about officials who needed to be paid to keep projects moving. He spoke like a man explaining weather patterns inevitable, impersonal. I didn't build this city by playing clean, he said. Everyone knew the risks. And the building? I asked quietly. The one that almost collapsed? He waved a dismissive hand. Acceptable losses. Delays cost more lives than defects. The words hung in the air. Recorded. Preserved, unforgivable. You knew people could die, I said. He shrugged. People always die. That was the moment I realized there was nothing left to mourn. We ended the meeting with a handshake. Outside, the rain had started again, light at first, then heavier. The city blurred under streetlights as I walked away, every step feeling unreal. Kevin didn't make it out of the building. Federal agents moved in quietly. No shouting, no spectacle. Just handcuffs and rights read in calm, practiced voices. I stood. Across the street as they let him out, Kevin saw me, for a second. His eyes widened, not with anger, not even fear. Recognition. He finally understood. That night, I tilted my face toward the sky and let the rain hit my skin. It soaked my hair, my coat, my past, but I wasn't broken anymore. I felt grounded. Present, holdout Samuel stood beside me. It's over, he said. I shook my head slowly. No, it's complete. Kevin's arrest, WSN, single quotes, victory. It was balanced. The city would rebuild. Investigations would continue. More names would fall, but I had done what I set out to do. I had turned silence into evidence. Power into exposure. As the rain washed the streets clean, I realized something profound. I hadn't just survived Kevin Williams. I had outgrown him, and for the first time since everything collapsed, I walked forward, not away from my past, but through it, unafraid. The city looks different when it no longer frightens you. Atlanta still hums the same way, traffic breathing in waves. Steel and glass rising toward the sky, but I stand within it now with my head held high, not as someone passing through. Not as someone erased, but as someone who endured. Today, Phoenix Crown Holdings is no longer a quiet name buried in legal filings. It is a living, accountable company, one built on transparency, safety, and responsibility. We don't chase shortcuts. We don't bury risks beneath contracts. We build homes designed to last, especially in communities that have been overlooked for decades. Places where people were told to accept less. We refuse to accept less. Every building we restore carries an inspection plaque engraved with a single line. Human lives come first. It isn't marketing. It's a promise, one written in the memory of those almost lost to greed. Some days, reporters still ask me about Kevin Williams. They want drama, revenge, a headline they can frame neatly. I don't give them that, because this story was never about destroying a man. It was about surviving the system that allowed him to exist. Kevin is gone from the skyline. Now his name stripped from towers, his legacy reduced to court transcripts and cautionary lectures. The investigations exposed more than just one company. Officials resigned. Policies changed. The city learned painfully what silence costs. And me? I learned who I am without permission. I think about my father often now, Daniel Brooks. The man whose shadow once confused me, then protected me, and finally guided me. He understood something I didn't back then. That real power isn't loud. It waits. It endures. Sometimes it hides until the world is ready to face it. Phoenix Crown funds training programs for young engineers. We invest in affordable housing. We rebuild structures others abandoned and restore dignity where it was stripped away. Every decision passes through a single question. Will this harm someone when no one is watching? If the answer isn't clear, we stop. I walk past one of our completed buildings on Auburn Avenue. Children run up concrete steps. An elderly woman waves from her balcony. The walls are solid. The foundation is secure. I touch the brick, feeling its quiet strength. Once, I slept in a motel with nothing but a suitcase and fear. Now, I build a shelter. That is the difference between revenge and legacy. Justice didn't arrive quickly. It didn't arrive cleanly. It arrived through resistance, sleepless nights, and the courage to speak when silence felt safer. But when it came, it changed everything. I don't believe in endings anymore, only continuations. This city still has shadows. Power still tempts corruption. Somewhere another deal is being signed that will test someone's conscience. And when it does, Phoenix. Crown will be watching. So will I. Because survival taught me strength. Truth taught me patience. And fire taught me how to leave something behind that cannot be erased. My name is Zara Williams. I was broken once. Now, I am the foundation. In this legacy, it's just getting started.